especially mainly calcium. So spindle fibers pushes the chromosomes on either side with the help of spindle fibers, and that's mainly because of spindle fibers made up of calcium that helps during cell division, pulling of chromosomes on either side. Right. Now apart from this, it also plays an important role in photolysis of water. Guys, these all points are important. Make sure that you practice on white paper. Take each element and what is its role. Individually, each element you practice on a white paper. Try to remember all the elements, right, during photosynthesis. Now, let's go with the next one, magnesium. Magnesium is the one, just before class also I told you, magnesium is the most essential element for what? Synthesis of chlorophyll. And two important enzymes we have written. What are they? Rubisco and PEPKs. These are the two enzymes which plays a vital role only with the activation of magnesium. Not only that, even if you take respiration like glycolysis, Krebs cycle, all in that magnesium regulates very important role in activation of enzymes, right. Apart from this, association and dissociation of ribosomes. So in molecular biology you will study protein synthesis. Guys, you will study this later, just for you, for the sake to remember I am telling you. Protein synthesis happens in two steps, transcription and translation. So here during protein synthesis both subunits will get separated. Smaller subunit of the ribosome get dissociated from the larger subunit. In between who will come means mRNA. Guys, don't worry, we will study this total story at the time of molecular biology. But now what you have to remember, association meaning joining of ribosomal subunits, dissociation, separation of ribosomal subunits purely taken care by the concentration of magnesium at the time of protein synthesis. Presently you may not understand this, but try to remember one point, ribosomal subunits association and dissociation is being controlled by the concentration of magnesium, right. So respiration and photosynthesis, even it plays an important role in DNA and RNA. That's also very important. So you know that magnesium is the one which is involved in synthesis of what are called nitrogen bases, adenine, guanine, cytosine and thymine. So both nucleic acids are composed of nitrogen bases and also involved in synthesis of the chlorophyll, that plays an important role in photosynthesis. And ribostructure, ribostructure means what? This is a story. That means ribostructure means ribosomes. Ribosomes means later you will study rRNA. What is rRNA? Ribosomal RNA. So these are the things which you have to remember for magnesium. Guys, again I will tell you, take each element, write these processes and where it plays an important role, what components are made up of nitrogen, like that each element you practice on white paper, thoroughly you practice and try to learn and remember which are the elements and where they play very important role. Let's continue further. Now let us talk about sulphur. Now sulphur, if you look at available form, is nothing but sulfates, SO4 minus 2. Now it also plays a very important role called amino acids. Which amino acids? Cysteine and methionine. Guys, in biomolecules also we have a very good question. What is that? Sulfur containing amino acids are, we have two. What are they? Cysteine and methionine. This methionine, what you find here, it's also called as starting codon. Guys, try to remember the word starting codon. It's represented by AUG. We will study in the molecular biology. Methionine, AUG, we will study in the molecular biology. What is AUG? Adenine, uracil and guanine. Adenine, uracil, guanine, AUG. 3 nitrogen bases. Together they involve in initiation of protein synthesis. As they begin the protein synthesis, they are referred as what? Starting codons. Next, sulfur also is a constituent of the coenzymes, vitamins, especially the vitamins like thiamine, biotin, coenzyme A, and also plays very important role in protein structure. Now if you take the common point called protein synthesis, which are the elements are very common means, you can take the elements like nitrogen and phosphorus, along with that you can take calcium and including sulphur. These elements are very common for a protein structure. Protein structure means proteins are made up of amino acids. Again I am telling you guys, take one white paper and take each element, and element place where in which metabolic process means you have to remember all. Again I repeat, sulphur containing amino acids are very important question. Cysteine and methionine. Cysteine structure we have in biomolecules. Open the biomolecule, practice once that complete amino acid, and then coenzymes. What are coenzymes? In enzymes video, class video, you already have studied coenzymes, just this before the class video. You know that the enzyme contain two, protein part and non-protein part. Non-protein part, it may be prosthetic group, coenzyme, right, or it may be metal ion, right. So sulphur also can act as a coenzyme. Sulphur is also present in most commonly used vitamins like thiamine, biotin and coenzyme A, and also plays an important role in protein structure. So that is about sulphur and their important role in metabolic processes. Now let us talk about iron. Now if you take the iron is most commonly absorbed into the plant by in the form of ferric and ferrous. Is most commonly getting oxidized and getting reduced with the absorption of electrons. So here Fe2 plus getting converted into Fe3 plus and get again converted back into this Fe2 plus and then Fe3 plus, Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus and again Fe3 plus back into Fe2 plus, ferric to ferrous. Okay, so here when it takes the electrons, when it loses the electrons, keeps undergoing oxidation and reductions. So here guys, you may think that what is there, why we have to remember these forms. Sulphur is absorbed in what form and phosphorus is absorbed in what form, nitrogen is absorbed in what form. You may think that so easy to remember, so you may have the skipping of the simple basic points. But do remember guys, this question, the absorbable form of iron in plant, this is the previous NEET question. That is a previous NEET question, that is iron is absorbed in the form of Fe2 plus, Fe3 plus, that means ferric or ferrous form. That is a previous NEET question. Very basic question was asked in 2017 paper I guess. What they asked is, the question is, iron is absorbed in the form of, iron is absorbed in plants in the form of, they have given some other components, ferric or ferrous, that became controversial, but mostly finally they concluded as ferric Fe2 plus, or sometimes it is Fe3 plus, but mostly it is Fe2 plus. See, such a simple basic question also have chance to get it in the final NEET. Okay, so this iron involved in activation of the enzyme, that is nothing but nitrogenase enzyme, very important. Now iron also involved in synthesis of chlorophyll. Now what are the elements so far involved in synthesis of chlorophyll? You know that so far what is the question comes, which elements plays an important role of synthesis of chlorophyll? Then we have to look for calcium, magnesium and including the iron. These are the three elements which are very much essential for the plant to synthesize chlorophyll, and chlorophyll is most essential component for the process called as photosynthesis. Right. Now apart from this, even iron is very much essential for activation of catalase enzyme and also act as electron acceptor or electron donor. When it takes the electron and loses the electron, it transfers the electrons from one component to other component, finally involved in generation of energy, and the total system is called electron transport system. Iron plays very important role in electron transport system. What is that electron transport system? Involved in synthesis of energy. Finally, when electrons are keep moving from one component to other component. Why they keep moving? Just for time pass you think, or are they, you think they don't have any other work? No, finally when they are moving one to other, one to other, one to other, finally they involved in synthesis of energy. It's called electron transport system. One is getting oxidized, other component will getting reduced. Like that circle way, many components are involved in electron transport system. Right. Now this is about iron. Now let us go with manganese. So if you take the manganese also plays an important role. If you look at in most of the element, major metabolic processes are two. What are they? Photosynthesis and respiration. These are the major metabolic processes, of course along with transpiration, right. So if you take photosynthesis and respiration, this manganese also plays an important role in nitrogen metabolism. Now if you look at which are the elements which plays an important role in nitrogen metabolism, if you think, then what not we have along with the nitrogenase enzyme, right, molybdenum. So along with that manganese. So these all are the elements which plays an important role in the nitrogen metabolism. Simply if you read, there is no use, guys. See the common things, see the interrelated thing. There are many elements which plays an important role in nitrogen metabolism, but the common elements are this: nitrogen, iron, manganese and molybdenum. Right, and also plays very important role in photolysis of water. Even if you take photolysis of water, if at all question comes which are the elements which take part in photolysis of water, means what not you can take calcium, manganese and also potassium. Which elements take in photolysis of water, means common elements, means you have to remember calcium, manganese and potassium. This is how you have to practice the table. This is how you have to remember for each element and look for the common things and look for the questionnaire where common things to be placed at one place for one particular concept. Next, zinc. Zinc is the one, you know, the zinc plant contains plant growth regulators, we call PGRs. What are they? Plant hormones we say, or we call plant growth regulators. What are they? Last class you studied in tissue culture, start this chapter. What are they? Auxins, gibberellins, cytokinins, abscisic acid, ethylene. In lower classes also you studied, right? And definitely will take an opportunity to study more on plant growth regulators. Nothing but what? Plant hormones. In that most important hormone is nothing but auxin. So zinc plays an important role in case of synthesis of auxin. What is this auxin? In which auxin it synthesizes? Here is the answer, that is indole 3-acetic acid. Okay, which auxin it will synthesize? Remember, indole 3-acetic acid. Of course, we have to go into the deeper of each and every concept. We will get back to this all in all are interconnected with the different chapters. Here the type of auxin is what? Indole 3-acetic acid, and also plays an important role in carboxypeptidase and carboxy anhydrase. What is that? Carboxypeptidase and carboxy anhydrase, and also activates alcohol dehydrogenase. Guys, you remember zinc is the very important metabolic ion, act as a cofactor. You know, just we studied enzymes, right? There zinc act as a cofactor for activation of these all enzymes. Which enzymes? Very, very important. You need to remember which enzymes? Carboxypeptidase, carboxy anhydrase, alcohol dehydrogenase. Guys, did you remember carboxy anhydrase will generate 6 lakh molecules of bicarbonate in 1 second. At the time of enzyme efficiency we studied. Very, very important. Who is the element who plays over there is nothing but zinc. Right. Next is nothing but what? Copper. Copper is a divalent ion. It's absorbed in Cu2 plus, and copper also plays an important role in electron transport system. Copper also takes the electrons and act as oxidizing agent, also act as a reducing agent, keeps involved in transfer of electrons, plays a vital role in electron transport system. Electron transport system occurs in both chloroplast as well as mitochondria. Guys, how chloroplast acts as energy generation in chloroplast, how ETS will act as energy generation in mitochondria. We are going to study in detail the total mechanism in photosynthesis that happens in chloroplast, in respiration that happens in mitochondria. We are going to study in detail. You can't escape, nor I can't escape. We both have to do it again. Okay, at that time we have to understand how ETS, what is ETS, how it generates energy in photosynthesis and respiration. We are going to study thoroughly, but try to remember at present these two are operated by which element means copper, these two are operated by which element means zinc, iron, like that, because these elements carry electrons. That's why they play an important role in electron transport system. For today you remember copper plays an ETS, iron plays an ETS. Tomorrow when photosynthesis chapter is there, when we are discussing, when respiration is there, when we are discussing, at that time I will ask you which elements plays an important role in ETS. So when we are studying ETS, you have to tell me, oh, this is copper, iron and zinc, these are the elements plays an important role in ETS. For today you are learning element and ETS. Tomorrow we are going to study another chapter, what is ETS and where it happens, how it happens, entire description we have to study in coming chapters. Presently you remember which are those components means cytochrome C, plastocyanine, they act as what? Electron carriers. This is made up of copper, this is also made up of copper. What do? They transfer electrons from one component to other component. They are the copper forms. What are they? Cytochrome and plastocyanine. So we call them as what? Electron carriers. Where do they do the function? In electron transport system. They made up of copper. Alright, this you try to remember. Now let's talk about boron. So if you talk about the boron part, if you take this is a stigma on which pollen grain is fallen, you know that pollen grain germinates and form what is called pollen tube. Pollen grain germinates and form what is called pollen tube. In which direction the pollen tube has to grow? The direction meaning here there will be synthesis of calcium, there will be synthesis of sugars. So wherever is the direction of calcium and sugar is there, to that direction pollen tube will grow. Okay, that means pollen tube germination on length of pollen tube is maintained by an element called as boron. Very, very important. So boron absorbed in the form of borates or oxoborates or borate oxophosphates are nothing but the forms in which the boron is being absorbed and helps in translocation of calcium and sugars not only from stigma to base of the ovary, for the entire plant. So from the leaf to apex, calcium is get transported, sugar is get transported only because of the element called boron. From leaf to shoot or tip of the shoot to the base, translocation is for longer distance. For long distance, calcium and sugars are transported only with the help of boron, right? And pollen tube germination, especially it accumulates in the shoot apex. So these are the things you have to remember for boron. Now coming to molybdenum. Molybdenum is observed in the form of dioxide form, that is molybdenum dioxide form, and this plays a very important role in activation of nitrogenase, that is in the nitrogen metabolism, especially in case of this nitrogenase is present in case of prokaryotes. Which prokaryotes? Guys, in first year you studied about what? Legumes. You know, Fabaceae members. Yeah, legumes, what the Fabaceae members? What do they contain? These legumes contain what? Root nodules. Guys, did you remember the story of root nodule? Root nodule gives a shelter or symbiotic association with whom? Rhizobium. Now rhizobium is involved in formation of what? Root nodule. Root nodule contain an enzyme called nitrogenase. The nitrogenase is made up of what? Nitrogenase is made up of iron, molybdenum, iron. So iron also important, molybdenum is also important as an activators for very important enzyme called nitrogenase, this is an enzyme which converts atmospheric nitrogen into nitrite or into nitrates. Okay, so like this each element you have to take. Instead of taking one element, writing, arising, we have placed a few elements at one corner and their metabolic processes, and other elements on other corner with metabolic processes. So, these elements and along with the metabolic processes are very important. Make sure that you practice on white paper. Still we will continue from molybdenum. So far what we discussed is nothing but molybdenum. Now continuation of this, let us continue with what is called chlorine. Exactly like potassium, chlorine also plays an important role in cation-anion balance. So in the cell membrane, if cation concentration is more, it allows the anion. If anion concentration is more, it allows the cation. Similarly, it also plays very important role in opening and closing of stomata. So, for causing transpiration, you know it very well, you know the closing and opening. Stomata has to get open for transpiration, it has to get closed for stopping the transpiration. So, the opening and closing of stomata along with the potassium, it is also highly regulated by chlorine. Not only that, it also plays like osmotic potential of the cell, exactly like potassium. Osmotic potential of the cell, and not only that, also plays an important role in photolysis of water. Especially photolysis of water, it is very much essential for the mechanism called photosynthesis. So here you know that opening and closing. So this chlorine exactly similar to whom? The chlorine is exactly similar to mostly called as potassium. So whenever the question comes, which are the two elements which balances osmotic potential of the cell, means chlorine and potassium will come. Especially chlorine plays an important role in splitting of water at the time of photosynthesis. So here again I will repeat here, chlorine has a capability to maintain, regulate the sequences of metabolisms which takes place across the cell membrane by balancing cation and anion, and also during transpiration. So this happens during when? Transpiration, loss of water from plant. So during transpiration, opening and closing of stomata, not only that, even in osmotic potential of the cell, regulating the potentiality of the cell, and also in splitting of water. So here the splitting of water we also call photolysis, because in the presence of sunlight there is a lysis or breakdown of water occurs with the companion of or a combination of few elements. Especially if the question comes, what is the question? Which are the elements which plays a vital role in splitting and photolysis of water, means you have to remember manganese, calcium as well as chlorine. So your NEET exam, it's not so simple directly asking simple LKG question, definitely no. So it will ask you what are the combination of elements which causes breakdown of water in the presence of light. The splitting of water, photolysis of water is taken care by a combination of elements. Which elements you have to remember? Guys, do remember manganese, calcium and chlorine, very very important. Next is the next element, nickel. So here the nickel, if you take, this is nothing but Ni plus 2, the chlorine is also absorbed in the form of a Cl minus. Guys, as I told you, which are the mono elements, which are the divalent elements, you have to remember very clearly. Now coming to nickel, if you take, this is a 17th essential element recently identified and joined in list of minerals. Very recently found, joined one, new one, 17th element. If the question is, then you have to take the option as what? Nickel. Now, nickel plays very important role, especially for activating some of the enzymes like urease. Urease is an enzyme which plays very important role in nitrogen metabolism. You know nitrogen metabolism, what is the other enzyme which plays an important role? Nitrogenase. Where is nitrogenase? Here is nitrogenase. Who is the nitrogenase? An important component we call molybdenum. Molybdenum plays very important role in activation of nitrogenase during nitrogen metabolism. Similarly, in the same nitrogen metabolism, another enzyme which plays an important role is nothing but urease. And who is the activator for urease means you have to take the option as nickel. Nickel, not only this, also induces a disease resistance. It also induces a disease resistance. So, if the plant has sufficient amount of nickel is there, definitely the plant shows resistance to the attack of different type of diseases. So, these are nothing but elements. Guys, what you have to do is take one white paper, take each element and practice that where is the role of that element in the metabolism. Practice thoroughly for every element. See the common things, common elements for common processes and make out the differences, then that becomes thorough study of mineral elements. Guys, this table not only includes the different aspects, it includes interrelated aspects. What the concepts you study here, definitely they are going to repeat in your second year in other chapters. At that time I will question you which is the element and what it plays an important role. At that time you have to tell me, for example, if I ask you auxins, we have the chapter called plant growth regulator. There I will ask you who is involved in synthesis of indole 3 ester acid, means auxin. There we study more on auxin, but there element is not written. Who have to answer? The guys who are watching video and learning that, who are practicing, who has to practice, who has to listen and understand, who practiced, definitely tomorrow they will answer me that who is which is the element required for auxin means. Guys, you are the ones you have to answer me telling zinc. So, here element and metabolism, but these metabolisms we are going to study in coming chapters. At that time definitely I will question you, you can answer, provide if you study and do hard work today, if you practice all elements today, definitely you can answer my questions in coming chapters. So, do not neglect, make sure that you take one white paper, it takes time, it is okay, one day you do 5 elements, next day you do 10 elements, like that. If you practice, definitely you can remember the element and metabolic, the role of element in metabolic processes.